The poor girl only had $50 to her name when she agreed to a blind date. $50. Her entire evening budget, her safety net. Her hope compressed into crisp bills tucked inside her purse. To anyone else in the room, it might have seemed like nothing. To her, it was everything. The restaurant hummed with the soft murmur of midweek dinners. Glasses clinked. Forks tapped gently against porcelain plates, and low laughter drifted through the air like faint music. A small trio of candles flickered at every table, casting warm shadows that moved with each shift of breath. The navy blue table linens glowed softly under amber light, making the room look richer than it truly was. It wasn't a five-star establishment, but for Haley, it felt like stepping into a dream. She paused in the doorway, the chime above the door ringing far too loudly, almost as if announcing her poverty, her nerves, her vulnerability. She smoothed the sides of her dress, a pearl-colored vintage piece fitted at the waist, its edges just beginning to fray. It had belonged to her mother. She had worn only once before, her college graduation. Tonight, it served as both armor and hope. Her blonde hair had been curled carefully that afternoon in her tiny apartment, strands pinned with shaky fingers as she sat before a chipped mirror. She had dusted on the last of her blush, smoothed lipstick into a pale pink smile, and whispered to herself that tonight could be different. Tonight could be better. "Reservation for Haley," she said softly when the hostess greeted her. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Right this way," the woman replied with a polite smile. Haley followed, her heels clicking faintly against the polished floor, her purse clutched tightly in her lap. Once she sat at the small table by the window. The light above the table glowed warmly, almost as if it was waiting for something to happen. She crossed her knees under the table, checked her watch, 6:45 p.m., and let out a small, hopeful breath. She was early. Good. 15 minutes gave her space to calm down, to pretend she wasn't terrified. She had met him on a dating app. Aaron. He had seemed thoughtful, not pushy. His messages were brief but sweet. He suggested this place, and though she had hesitated, knowing her bank account wouldn't stretch, she had eventually said yes. At a table nearby, Ethan Blake sat in a charcoal gray suit, a glass of scotch resting in his hand. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes were not. A long day of meetings had ended, yet something about the girl near the window drew his attention. She had walked in carrying hope like a fragile flame, and he had watched her from the moment she sat down. Minutes slipped by. 15. 30. Haley shifted. Check her phone again. Nothing. She scrolled to the last message from Aaron. "Can't wait to see you tonight." She smiled at it again, as if to prove to herself it had been real. At 7:15, she typed a quick text. "Hey, I'm here. Just checking in." Silence. By 7:30, she called. One ring, then voicemail. Her chest tightened. A server approached. "Miss, would you like to order something? We're starting to fill up." Haley blinked rapidly. "Oh, I'm actually waiting for someone." "Just a little longer." The server nodded and left. She reached for her purse. Inside was her emergency stash, a single $5 bill. She hadn't planned on ordering much. Maybe tea, maybe nothing at all. She had trusted he would show. Then her phone buzzed. Her heart leapt. Relief surged until she opened the message. "Wow, you actually went. I was just messing with you. Sorry, but you're not really my type. Not worth the Uber." Another message followed. "You seem nice, but seriously, you thought I was actually coming?" The words blurred. She blinked, forcing back the sting. Around her, couples laughed. Glasses clinked, but the sounds dulled into static. Her fingers tightened around her napkin. She refused to cry. Not here. Ethan saw everything. The way her face paled, the way she sat taller, as if her spine were the only thing holding her together. He had once known that look himself. The ache of waiting for someone who never intended to arrive. Haley sat motionless for long minutes, trying to decide if she should stay or leave. She was hungry, both emotionally and physically. She hadn't eaten properly in days, saving her money for this night. Now, even water felt like a humiliation. Finally, she reached for her coat, moving slowly, as if every muscle had grown heavy. Just as she rose, a server approached with a steaming plate of pasta and a sparkling lemonade. "Your order?" Haley froze. I didn't order this." "It's taken care of," the server said gently. "Someone requested it for you. Your tab has been covered." Her brows furrowed. A joke? Another cruel trick? Then a voice came from just behind her. Calm, low, certain. "It's not charity," Ethan said. "It's a reminder. You deserve to eat, even if the world tries to tell you otherwise." Haley turned, startled. Ethan stood, one hand resting casually on his chair. His eyes carried no pity, only honesty. He pulled out the chair across from hers and sat without waiting for an invitation. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said softly, "Take care of your stomach before you try taking care of someone else's heart." It wasn't a line. It wasn't pity. It was truth. Haley sat back down slowly. Her hands trembled in her lap. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," Ethan replied. Silence stretched, not awkward but grounding. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't trying to impress her. His tailored suit and expensive watch told her he lived in a different world. But his voice, his presence, felt steady, kind. "You don't know me," she said finally. "True," Ethan admitted, "but I saw enough." Her throat tightened. "And what exactly did you see?" He leaned forward, his tone quiet but firm. Someone who showed up, someone who hoped, someone who waited longer than she should have. Not because she was desperate, but because she believed. That still matters. Her breath caught. No one had ever put it that way. People had called her naive, soft, foolish, but never brave. For the first time that night, Haley lifted her fork. The food was warm, comforting. The first real meal she'd had in days. Ethan leaned back. "I didn't mean to interfere, but you reminded me of someone I used to be." She glanced up. "And who is that?" He smiled faintly. A man who thought he had to be someone else to be worth showing up for. Something softened in her chest. For the first time all evening, she felt like she was allowed to exist at that table. Seen, respected, not mocked. Dinner ended quietly, not with fireworks or declarations, but with something rarer. Comfort. Haley ate slowly, savoring each bite. She hadn't realized how much her body craved food until her fork scraped the bottom of the plate. Ethan had kept the conversation light, steering it away from her humiliation. He asked about books she liked, music she listened to while working, little things that didn't demand more than she wanted to give. He didn't press. He didn't ask why she looked so fragile or why her purse seemed too small to carry much of a life. When the plates were cleared, Ethan placed his card on the table before the server could even ask. "I told you," Haley began softly. "I know," Ethan cut her off gently. "But tonight is mine. Let's just call it a dinner with a stranger who wanted you to leave smiling instead of empty." She looked down, her lips parting to argue, but she couldn't. For once, she let herself accept the kindness. They left the restaurant together, the night air crisp and still carrying the warmth of late summer. The street lamps spilled pools of yellow light across the sidewalk. Haley hugged her coat tighter around her frame. "Do you need a ride?" Ethan asked, pausing near his sleek black car. Haley shook her head quickly. "No, I'll be fine. The bus stop is just a few blocks away." He studied her, wanting to insist, but he saw the wall in her eyes, the pride, the independence, the fragile balance she was still trying to hold. So instead, he nodded. "All right, but at least promise me you'll get home safe." She smiled faintly, almost disbelieving that someone cared enough to ask. "I will." For a moment, neither moved. Then Ethan extended his hand. "Good night, Haley." Her fingers slipped into his, warm against his cool, steady grip. "Good night, Ethan." And then she walked away, her small figure fading under the streetlights until she disappeared into the night. The next morning, sunlight streamed through Ethan's floor-to-ceiling windows. He sat at his kitchen table, coffee in hand, but his mind wasn't on the news spread before him. Instead, he thought of her, the way she had smiled through her embarrassment, the way she had still carried hope, even after being shattered. He hadn't asked for her number. He hadn't wanted to blur the line between kindness and pursuit. But now, with the quiet echo of her absence, He found himself wishing he had. Life, however, has a strange way of looping paths together. A week later, Haley sat in a small corner cafe, laptop open, papers spread across the table. She had been working on scholarship applications for nursing school, her eyes heavy from nights spent between shifts at a diner and endless forms online. Her coffee had gone cold. She stared at the words on the screen, tried to write an essay about resilience, about what she would bring to the field of nursing. But her fingers hovered over the keys, paralyzed. How do you condense hunger, eviction notices, and broken promises into neat, inspiring paragraphs? "Mommy, can I have a cookie?" A little voice chirped from the next table. Haley glanced over. A little girl with chestnut curls sat swinging her legs, a book open in front of her. Across from her sat Ethan. He looked almost out of place in the cozy cafe, his sharp suit softened by the warmth of fatherhood. Haley froze. Ethan glanced up at the same moment. His eyes widened slightly, then softened into something she couldn't quite read. Recognition. Relief. Maybe even gratitude. He smiled. "Haley?" Her heart stumbled. "You!" She laughed softly, shaking her head. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again." "Neither did I," Ethan admitted. He nodded toward the girl. "This is Lily, my daughter." The little girl turned, her curls bouncing. "Hi," she said brightly, before returning to her book. Haley smiled, warmth tugging at her chest. "She's beautiful." "Thank you," Ethan said quietly. Then he looked at Haley, really looked. The laptop, the pile of scholarship forms, the half-empty cup. "You're in school?" "Trying to be," Haley replied. "Nursing. If I can find a way to afford it." She laughed, but it wasn't bitter, just tired. Ethan leaned forward slightly. "You will." Haley blinked. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've seen you," Ethan said simply. "You don't quit, not even when you should." Her throat tightened. No one had ever said it like that before. The cafe bustled around them, but for a moment, it felt like the world had narrowed to just their table. Lily giggled at something in her book. The sound of ribbon tying the moment together. Haley exhaled slowly. "I thought you were just a kind stranger that night." "Maybe I was," Ethan said. Then, after a pause, he added softly, "Or maybe I was waiting for a reason to not be." Haley stared at him, her chest swelling with a mix of fear and something dangerously close to hope. She had walked into that blind date with $50 and left with nothing but hurt. Yet here, days later, she found something she hadn't even known she needed. Someone who saw her, not her failures. The essay on her laptop remained unwritten, but in that moment, she realized she already carried the answer. Resilience wasn't about surviving alone. It was about standing up after being broken, and sometimes letting someone else offer their hand when you couldn't. As Lily leaned across the table to offer Haley a cookie from her plate, Ethan smiled. "Looks like you've officially passed the test. She doesn't share those with just anyone." Haley laughed, the soundlight free. For the first time in a long time, it felt like maybe, just maybe, the story she had walked into wasn't ending in heartbreak. Maybe it was only just beginning.